Clark, my fellow commissioners, Manager Madrid, our clerk Renee Canton. I would like to welcome each and every one of you here to this morning's meeting of Wednesday, October 9th, 2019. It is now 9 a.m. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Kathy Clark. Here. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Honorable George Zagetti.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item 2, silent meditation. I would ask that each and every one of you please join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Zagetti, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item 4, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda of October 9th, 2019 as submitted, or are there changes or corrections?
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda with the following exceptions. On the agenda, let's see, 8.1. I believe that should read 473,000. I think we've got an extra 0 on that figure. Same with page 40.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the notation as made by Mayor Pro Tem Clark on H1. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item C, presentation, C1, presentation of a proclamation naming November 10th as American Legion Women's Auxiliary Centennial Day. Do we have anybody here from the auxiliary this morning?
Request to postpone it, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item D, public comment. I ask that anyone wishing to give public comment this morning approach the podium, give your name, address, 3-minute, remember the 3-minute time limit, and any items that you need to give to the commission, please place it in the little black box next to the podium there. Thank you.
My name is Jack Noel. I get my name from Broadway, and I'm here to address the smart meter issue. I have an article each week in the Sentinel Press Health, and also is on the forum, and written about electromagnetic radiation. On the forum there are 89 articles that cite the problems therein. Unfortunately, with smart meters and the issues.
Mr. Noel, excuse me just a minute. We can't hear. Let me see if that mic is on.
Do I get a restart, Ralph?
Yes, sir.
You better restart. You better
Thank you.
restart. Hi, my name is Jack Noel. I was 601. I get my mail at 601 Broadway, and I write an article called City of Health in the Sentinel every week. It deals with health issues, and I've written 2 articles directly addressing EMR radiation, i.e. that which the smart meters put out. And that article goes on a website, and there are 89 other articles substantiating the dangers there are with electromagnetic radiation. Also, information can be gathered from there or on the internet. Start with smart meters, stopsmartmeters.com. Also, there's a new newspaper in town, which is SierraCountySun.com, which is another way of looking at these issues. First of all, there's so much wrong with this article, with this passage, with this contract, that I don't know where to start. I ask the city commissioners to back up, stop, cancel the agreement, the contract. There's a clause in the contract, I've read the whole 200 some odd pages. It's an escape clause. You can get out. At the same time, I hope that you will open this community up to a discussion about where we want to go and how we want to get there. Can anybody Google fiber optics in small communities? The responsibility of government is to prove that these items and things that you introduce in our community are safe. It is not the obligation of the citizens to prove that they are not safe. There is so much information out there, it's incredible. And I will close by reframing this issue. Basically, there is not only a political battle going on in this country, but there's a spiritual war going on. So let me reframe this whole issue in a spiritual way. The City Commission has signed a contract with Satan to bring pestilence into each home in this community and business that has an electric meter attached to it. The cost for us to have this privilege is $1 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. The next person on my list this morning is Ron Pokoric.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Ron Pokoric, PRC. A couple things. The golf course is looking a lot better, but I was wondering if the engineer came out and looked at the flooding problem. When are we getting a building inspector? There was a problem trying to get a building, and Tracy, bless her heart, tried to help get this building permit, but you had to go down to Cruces, and if you don't get it filled out correctly, they'll send it back because you have to have a self-addressed envelope in the package. It'd be nice to have our own building inspector. And Commissioner Seghetti, this is the third time, this is the third month I've come to ask where we're at on the pass-through. The municipal code still says pass-through, not energy efficient change. So I'm asking questions of this board, and I would appreciate some answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. The next one on our list this morning is Diane Lombardo.
Diane Lombardo, Silver Street, Tier C. First, I want to commend City Manager Madrid for cutting the shelter loose from the police department. That is a huge, huge move. Of course, that opens up a couple of other things. The first thing is we need an approved official shelter board. The shelter manager job is huge, and we need a board to help that manager run the shelter. It needs to be an approved board that will be listened to and not arbitrarily disbanded as boards have been who helped the shelter in the past. Both Alvarez and Aragon have set up boards. Of course, the board that Alvarez set up disappeared when he did, and I don't know how much longer the board that Aragon set up is going to last. The other thing that I want to address is the search for a new city manager, shelter manager. This is a professional job, a huge professional job. It is not something you put into the Sentinel and say, okay, that's it. This person needs to know shelter manager, needs to know administration, needs to know animals. It is huge, and it is stressful because it is a life and death job. You are making life and death decisions, and burnout in the animal rescue area is huge. Suicide is huge. You need to get somebody in there who knows what they're doing, who can run a department, who is strong in administrative and strong in shelter, and knows shelter management, shelter medicine, knows their animals, knows how to get in touch with rescues, has a great reach in resources, reaching out all over the country, literally, to get animals transferred out of here and into a place where they can be adopted, because we just, until we catch up with the spay neuter, we cannot handle the influx. I suggest we go to Tucson, Phoenix, El Paso, maybe even Denver. Let's get out of here. Where would you go to find a new city manager? Where would you go to find a new chief? These are professional jobs for professional people, not somebody you put in the Sentinel and expect to get a decent candidate pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to give public comment this morning? Come on down, Carl.
Morning. My name is Richard Hinson. I live at 805 Canina de Mesa. I'm having some issues, and I've been working, not really working, I guess I've been yelling at the city, because I can't get any information as far as what the codes are, how the codes are developed, and who is supposed to be enforcing the codes. Everybody I talk to, the code enforcement, they don't know what the codes are, they have no idea how to enforce them. And when I talked to Mr. Morris yesterday, he basically told me the same thing, what codes? And I said, well, I don't know what the codes are, because you're the city code, so you're supposed to tell me what the codes are. And so right now, I'm in an issue. I've got a lady that's building some decks and stuff in her backyard, and what she did, she took down an existing retaining wall that was built by the, I guess it was built by the city or whoever built the housing project. And she moved everything forward onto the hillside, and then she built the hillside up 4 feet, and she's draining the water over the hillside. And it's washed out probably $25,000 worth of landscaping. And when I talk to the city, I can't get any information. Who's responsible? Who's handling the codes? What the codes are? So, I'm kind of frustrated, and I guess they don't understand that. But, I'm just at the point right now, I need somebody to come out, assess the area, find out what codes are covered by it. And I can't get anybody to do that. So, I guess what I'm here for is to find out who handles the codes, what the codes are, and at least have somebody come out and assess what's going on and figure out what the codes are to cover that, and then address that situation. Because right now, if it keeps up going the way it's going, or doing what she's doing, she's going to wash that whole hillside out. She put in a 3-inch drain pipe when she did her remodel. That last 2-inch rain blew the hillside totally out. And I had to take and spend $1,000 just to stabilize the hillside to keep the rest of it from coming down. So my issue is, I've got nobody helping me. The city doesn't seem to want to get involved with it, because there should be codes that govern her building that up and forcing the water down the hillside. But nobody knows what the code is. Nobody can tell me anything.
At this point in time, this is just public comment, and we don't
Right.
respond until we respond back. So,
But I'm just putting a comment saying, I need to get somebody
thank you.
to give me information.
Thank you, and we will address your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, 316 North Foch. I'm here to speak on the crazy meters. You folks have, without a single public input into this, purchased a ludicrous system that will not work in this community. This community complaining that they cannot read meters properly Okay? Why are we not hiring meter readers that can read or walk 6 miles a day? Instead, we'll spend $1 million to eliminate them while requiring higher paid, very technical people to handle this AMI system, which we do not have in this community. I'm wondering how many of you read the 278 pages in the RFP answer by Landis and Gear, for instance. How many of you even read the master agreement, the 45 pages, which outlines responsibility after responsibility after responsibility for the city in this regard? And none of it is going to be cheap. You are not going to be running this like you bought a baseball. This is a highly technical area. We don't have highly technical people in this community, and to hire them, we could probably get 6 meter readers and teach them how to read and give them a scooter. This is absolute nonsense, and the disrespect that you have shown this community by passing this without any public comment, without any concern for the health issues that Mr. Noel brought up, is criminal. And Madam Mayor, you signed this just as you signed the ludicrous solar farm contract that is going to cost the citizens over $2 million more than it should. You don't read these things. If you did and you understood what they said, you would not sign them on the basis of some smarter than you salesman who can talk the talk. And Mr. Zaghetti should never have voted on this in the first place, because he is directly behind dealing with these people for years to try to get this passed through the city. And he is not an elected official.
Thank you, Mr. Finn. Next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ariel Doherty, Cabaya Road. I'm vehemently opposed to smart metering that the Commission is proposing. You appear to be proceeding with no official public input. My reasons are 3. 1, it is far too expensive with an ongoing unknown expense down the road, especially as present meters are not broken, like the water mains or downtown drainage. What problems that might exist can be addressed in other ways. 2, it is a health hazard of gigantic proportions waiting to explode. Think tobacco industry. 3, such a large expense locks us further into the death spiral of fossil fuels. We have all a collective moral obligation to reach zero emissions. Let's address this instead. You must provide evidence that smart metering is safe. Your actions proceed to make us all guinea pigs. There is ample evidence about the effects of elevated radio frequency hampering people's health. It is possibly a Class B2 carcinogen. Legal cases against smart metering have already been settled on behalf of plaintiffs in Maine, California, and Hawaii. One of the lead plaintiffs said, "We understand that the horse is out of the barn in terms of meters being in, but they should be vetted. They should have vetted these smart meters for safety before they were deployed, instead of waiting until they've deployed to see that there's well-known biological effects. Here, the horse is not yet out of the barn. You have a civic and legal obligation to ensure our safety, the public welfare. I deplore you to whoa, not proceed." Under the Americans for Disability Act, Title II, even municipal utilities must comply. For those of us who qualify with a disability, the city cannot smart meter our homes upon a request. Many of our citizens have ADA concerns and can submit requests to keep their analog meters. The 26% of our citizens who live in poverty especially cannot afford this gross, unhealthy action of yours. In the future, you may be obligated to pay for health consequences. If you do not want to err on the side of public welfare and safety and keep our expenses down and recognize the climate disaster we are all facing, legal actions may be the only remedy. Please seriously consider the issues I bring to your attention before you make any more movements in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ariel. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment this morning? Anyone else? Hearing none, I will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item E, response to public comment. Is there any response to public comment this morning? Commissioners? Manager? Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. On Mr. Henson's complaint, would the subject he's talking about, would that fall under state code on
Commissioner?
landscaping and drainage and that kind of stuff?
Actually, I do have a response. I've given it privately, but I'll give it publicly now. We did receive a concern. We did visit the site. We actually took our engineer out there to visit the site. It's a drainage issue. There's several contributing factors to that issue. 2 out of the 3 involve water flow through neighbors' property. I informed the gentleman that we do not regulate that. That is a Corps of Engineers issue. We did have an issue in regard to the way that our road was laid out. It was sloping somewhat to that area. We are responsible for that. We're going to be upgrading the asphalt so that the water flows away from that area. That will have addressed all the issues that the city is responsible for. This is this is a civil matter, not a matter that the city has jurisdiction over among what private people do. We can't assume that there has been code violations. We can't assume that anyone has broken the law. If something was built and did not get a permit through the city, it's entirely possible, even probable, that the contractor that did the job is not the same name as the person that owns the property. So a record search wouldn't reveal that. It's entirely possible the contractor is not even from this town. So I think that we've been diligent. We have gone a little bit beyond in actually taking our engineer out there. It was an extreme case. It was an extreme storm though. But we did go that far, and as far as we're concerned, the city has met its legal obligations under its authority.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. At this time, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your public comment. Remember, your public comments are very important to us, and we will take everything that is said here into consideration and come back with answers. And hopefully we can resolve any issues that anybody has regarding what we do. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F, consent calendar. On the consent calendar, I have F1, City Commission regular minutes of September 25th, 2019. F2, acknowledge the Golf Course Advisory Board minutes of August 7th, 2019. F3, acknowledge the Airport Advisory Board minutes of August 6th, 2019. F4, acknowledge the Library Board minutes of September 30th, 2019. And F5, accounts payable September 2019. Is there anything that needs to be discussed separately, or do I have a motion to approve as noted?
Mayor, I have 2 questions, please.
Yes, ma'am.
On page 25 of our paperwork, I had a question about 50 pounds of calcium hypochlorite, or chloride for the municipal pool. And it's a shock treatment used for swimming pools. And it seems that $9,890 is a little expensive. And I'd be curious for an explanation on that one. And on page 33, there's, just a minute, let me find it. There's a grant council expense, which I may have not seen before, but for $77,519, and I'm curious what is comprised in that expense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm looking for the grant council expense in relation to the chlorine, Commissioner. That is an effort to create an inventory for those. We were having to buy it. We were buying it in small amounts, having it delivered from Albuquerque and paying the shipping all the time. This is so we stockpile it safely, of course, and we don't pay shipping on a 5-gallon container every time we need some. So this is enough to last us through the end of June.
But calcium hypochlorite can be purchased for anywhere from $80 to $130 a pound. And if this is only 50 pounds, I think you're overpaid for it. It's just my comment.
Okay.
And then the grant council expense is on the account summary.
Okay, that's for one of our sub-award grantees. The sub-awards are budgeted in the governing body budget.
Okay.
I'm not sure why we haven't created a separate one. That's why that shows up there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, with the clarifications, do we have a motion to approve as noted? Are you satisfied with the?
I'm not happy with the calcium hypochlorite. I don't think that was looked into properly, and I don't have any blame anywhere, but I would like to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
Sure.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as noted, and the comments made by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Are there any further comments, concerns, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item G, public hearings. We do have a public hearing this morning, discussion action, final adoption of ordinance number 707, amending the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, UTO, City Manager Madrid, and Jay Rubin, our City Attorney.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is a follow-up for the final adoption to bring our ordinance in line with the revision to the state laws that were amended by the legislature to the Uniform Traffic Code earlier this year.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate. Yeah, that's exactly correct. Every year the legislature will make changes to the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, and we are basically mandated to follow suit by passing ordinances for similar, in fact, not identical to the state statute. So let me just go ahead and summarize what we have. There's basically two substantive changes. The first, as you'll see, and I gave you a red line version so you'll be able to follow the changes, but the first main change is there's a new section L12-6, that's 12.3, driving while intoxicated with a minor in the vehicle. And I'll just read it aloud. A, driving while intoxicated with a minor in the vehicle consists of a person committing a violation of 12-6-12.3 when a minor is in the vehicle and when the minor does not suffer great bodily harm or death. Whoever commits driving while intoxicated with a minor in the vehicle is guilty of a misdemeanor. B reads, a charge for a violation of subsection A of this section shall be in addition to a charge for the violation of 66-8-102 NMSA 1978 and shall be punished as a separate offense. C, as used in this section, minor means an individual who is younger than 13 years of age. 12-6-12.7, unlawful use of a license. There's basically some stylistic changes. which aren't really, don't really change really the tenor of really what was already in existence. And then there's a new section 12-6-12.8, driving while licensed administratively suspended. And this basically gives the motor vehicle more authority to suspend someone's license under certain circumstances, such as someone failing to appear in court or failing to pay a penalty, that's a fine. And again, there's a couple other sections which have been also amended, but they're pretty minor changes. Actually, there is some 1210-6.4 mandatory financial responsibility. There's been a new subsection D added regarding financial responsibility, which kind of gives some more options for a motor vehicle operator to be in compliance with that requirement. So that's it. Let me thank Commissioner Zaghetti, by the way. When we had our meeting 2 meetings ago, he pointed out 12-6-12.3 under B that it didn't make sense that we were talking about that there would be a separate charge for a violation of 12-6-12.3. It's the same thing. What it should have been was 66-8102, which is the driving while intoxicated statute. So in other words, if someone is charged with a DWI, can also be charged in addition with this additional ordinance. Interestingly, just a little side note, when I had gotten the text from the Municipal League, they had the incorrect ordinance, and after Commissioner Zaghetti made his comments, I just went back to my office and said, this doesn't make any sense. So that's why we made the change, and we made the change before we went to publication. So this is what we went to publication with. So thank you, Commissioner Zaghetti, and that's what I have here.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Are there any questions, comments, concerns from the commission?
Mayor, just one comment, and I think we've made this before, Attorney Rubin, but just to restate it, my understanding is that this ordinance just complies with what state statute has changed for us.
Yes.
And so we're just mimicking what has already
Correct.
been passed legislatively.
Exactly, yeah. I was not being creative here, which is a good thing.
Thank you, Attorney
Thank you.
Rubin.
I do have one member of the audience that signed in to speak. Would you still like to speak?
Yes.
Ron Finn?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, 316 North Foch. This regards the traffic ordinance, which you are about to approve. And part of it, which is being abused in our community right now, and I want to bring it to your attention, is section 66-7-104 of the motor vehicle laws. Okay, obedience to any required traffic control devices. And it speaks to the requirement that people obey traffic control signs. In that regard, I want to bring to your attention the fact that there are signs at the public high school which state very clearly no parking during school hours. However, this parking lot is filled with students every day. That same parking lot says entrance only, and on the back side of the sign it says no exit. There is no other entrance or exit to this parking lot since they built the wellness center and divided the parking lot into two. The second parking lot says do not enter and exit only on the other side. However, people are going into the parking lot in disobedience of this traffic law, and they should be tagged for being in those parking lots during school hours. Is it ridiculous? Of course it's ridiculous. I've spoken to the principal of the high school. I've spoken to the superintendent of schools, the chief of police, the sheriff, a deputy, teachers, and everyone says we don't know what to do with the signs. Take them down. If you need help, I have the tools and I can do the job. But for months now, these signs have been up. They were originally the no parking during school hours signs were put up for the contractor who was building the wellness center, which has been built and opened, well, sort of open, for the entire school year so far. And yet, nobody knows how to remove signs that teach people that they don't have to obey signs. I spoke to some of the students that were in the parking lot, and the response that I got was, oh, if I can't leave here, I can jump the curb. I can jump the curb. This is what we teach our children in high school. Chief, I would like you to send an officer up and tag every car that's in that parking lot. Prima facie, no parking during school hours. That's all I have to say about traffic ordinances, which you were going to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion to approve the final adoption of ordinance number 707, amending the Uniform Traffic Ordinance, UTO.
So moved, Mayor. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H, ordinances, resolutions, and zoning. H1, discussion action, ordinance number 708 for publication, authorizing the city to enter into a loan agreement with the New Mexico Finance Authority Department for the purpose of obtaining project loan funds in the amount of, is that
473,000 there. There's an extra zero at the end.
$473,000 for the rehabilitation of the vacuum sanitary sewer system. City Manager Madrid.
The period was in the right place. We had an extra zero.
Okay.
I'll call on Tracy to give us a little background on this.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. My apologies for the extra zero. Got the information last minute from NMED, and I did a quick copy paste from their ordinance that they provide, and I noticed that their ordinance also has that extra zero in it, so we'll make that correction if we can.
Copy paste too.
So I provided you guys a lot of stuff regarding the vacuum station in your agenda packet. But we're lucky enough to have Jesse here, and I think him giving you the overview of the issues and stuff with the vac station would be great, if I can put Jesse on the spot. I think it's always good to hear directly from the one that has all of the issues that he's dealing with.
So our vac station runs down the Riverside Drive and the Rodeo Arena area primarily. We have, it's an old system. It was built, I believe, in 1996. It's been pretty well maintained over the years. The $473,000 would get us upgraded to the point where it runs very efficiently. It would include, as far as the scope of work here, the preliminary engineering report, location survey, environment planning and permitting, design for vacuum station building, letting and bidding, construction management, and construction. This would give us some light emitting diodes for the energy savings, and those lights would blink whenever there's a vacuum pit that gets hung open. It basically uses the incoming air to engage a small diode that would then blink, and our customers would see that and they could call us out so we don't lose vacuum to the entire system, which is essentially the biggest problem. When one of those valves gets stuck, all of the vacuum gets directed to that one stuck valve. eliminating the ability for all the other customers to have any suction going to their homes, which then lets their sewer fill up and creates a potential hazardous environment. We do have a lot of customers that call us out when they notice that sound. You can hear it right now. There's just no other identifying factor. So it'll give us some extra stuff to identify those early. And that's the big thing, is the early response, so we don't have catastrophe happen. This would be also to rehabilitate all the valve pit packages. The valve pits are basically two cones stacked on top of each other. There's a tube that goes down into the bottom pit, an actuator that works like a solenoid based on the pressure. As that water builds up in that tube, it pushes on that, and when it finally hits, it opens a valve, allowing the vacuum to suck it out. Once the water level drops, it allows that solenoid to close, and it closes the valve. So there's a lot of different working factors there. Since I've taken post with the city of Tiercy, we've done some upgrades, not upgrades necessarily, but some necessary repairs on the system. And these repairs are primarily on the controllers and the actuators. The valve pits themselves would be our next best step to get these all replaced and to have enough of them to accommodate the homes. You know, when this was built, there was essentially 4 homes per pit. Now they've had some subdivided lots, a lot of activity out there over the years. So there's some homes that we need to accommodate a little bit. So this is going to help us get to that point. We do have the vacuum pumps themselves are fairly pricey, and we have done repairs on those before, but this would get us back to some newer, better established vacuum motors that would run more efficiently and help us with the piping in there. The piping needs to be corrected a little bit, just wear and tear over the years. The station controls, LEDs, I think I covered everything on here. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jesse. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns?
Jesse, thank you. Just 2 questions. Where are the locations of these pumps?
The vacuum pumps, there's a primary building on Riverside.
Okay. I know that one.
Okay. And then, so there's the vacuum lines run both directions, north and south, from that building. And there's roughly 4 connections per pit. And we actually have 75 pits in the ground, 76, that all have 4 connections each, up to 4 connections each. Some of them don't have all 4, just because they were put in a location where there was a big lot, or one home that took up multiple acres there. So there's 75 pits, and those pits all have a controller, a valve, the solenoid actuator, and then the 4 connections that are shaped in a cross that go underneath to the 4 potential hookups.
So is this part of the problem why a couple of people along that line had a backup a few months ago?
Probably so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we address this pretty regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're
Are
welcome.
there any further questions, comments, concerns?
One more comment, Mayor. You heard Jesse describe all the mechanics involved in these kind of things. The putting off this type of maintenance means that we have a lot of older equipment. This is only the beginning. We're gonna have to do a lot more replacement of these pumps, and not only in wastewater but in water. So it's gonna be a constant thing over the next couple of years that we're gonna replace all these mechanical parts that have been deferred for a long time. We still have some cast iron pipe. It's a whole infrastructure issue. But thanks for the description. I wouldn't have known how to do that.
Thank you.
Let me share with you a couple assumptions I made. And certainly, Phil, jump in here if I say something that's, if I'm off on something. But I think what's before you today is an ordinance And the ordinance is not the actual loan agreement. As I understand, this is really just an ordinance to allow us to enter into a loan agreement.
Correct.
So, okay, so that'll be a separate document that we'll be reviewing at some time. So I guess what we pass the ordinance eventually, and then we get the loan agreement after that transpires?
Correct.
Okay.
We already did a resolution to accept their offer.
I saw that. And then, do we know that the figures are actually going to be what's stated here, the 373,000 and the 100,000?
Yeah, correct. So the application was for $473,000. They are going to do a $100,000 subsidy, in essence, kind of a grant, and our payback is for $373,000 at a 1.2% interest rate, I believe.
Yeah, the reason I was asking, because this ordinance said shall not exceed 373,000, and the grant will not exceed 100,000, so that's why I was just a little unclear about that.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, I want to make sure, so really what we're doing right now is passing or going to publication on this ordinance to allow us to later enter into the loan agreements.
It's a kind of a legal statement of intent, yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mayor. I'll make the motion that we put out for publication ordinance number 708, authorizing the city to enter into a loan agreement with the New Mexico Environment Department for the purpose of obtaining a project loan funds in the amount of $473,000 so our people can flush the toilet.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the publication of ordinance number 707 as noted by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H2, discussion action, resolution number 1619/20 for the proclamation calling the municipal officer election to be held on March 3rd, 2020. City Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to ask our city clerk to give us the background on this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid. Commissioners, as you know, the new Local Election Act is in effect, and we have gone through the training, which I was lucky to be a big part of. And in order to proceed this year, it's going to be a little bit different. Usually we did before a resolution calling the election, and this year actually all the requirement is to send a letter to the Secretary of State. But as a group, as a whole, for those of the municipal officer election users, as you know, there's 39 municipalities who chose to keep their elections in March, such as we did. And with that, we all kind of collaborated and decided a resolution is the best way to proceed anyway. And this resolution will go to the Secretary of State, who will pass the overall proclamation calling this election. And at this point, what we have is the positions that we have available is for we have 2 commissioners that are up for a 4-year term, and we have 1 commissioner who was appointed and will be up for 1 2-year term, and we have the municipal judge who is up for election in the March elections. There's no questions at this time that I was aware of that through the discussions to bring, and with that, you have the draft resolution, and I would open it up for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Renee.
I did want to add, Madam Mayor, if I might, that we still are awaiting the approval from the Secretary of State's office. We have called them numerous times to make sure that we've got everything in here. So we would like the opportunity, if there's a little amendment here and there, that we might be able to make that change.
Thank you, Clerk Canton. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Canton, I'm just curious as whether on the page where it talks about having the, early voting. Do we need to put a date down on what date that starts? Because we've got the exact date for, when the vote date is, but if we're starting early voting, I don't see a date on here.
That is part of the information that they said wasn't necessary, that I thought it might be nice to put it in there for the public, but what we'll be doing is publication notices. And so we'll have a full publication like we had done before with all of the detailed dates of when everything starts, to also include in the candidate packets as well.
But wouldn't that be kind of a consideration to the voting public to let them know in advance when they can start doing early voting?
Absolutely, that's the intent.
Can we put it in there anyway, even though we don't have to?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Attorney Rubin?
Sure, that's fine.
Mayor?
That's fine with me.
Do you know what date that would be?
Yes.
30 days?
Not on top of my head, but yes, I have all of the dates for when everything starts and when to expect everything.
Why don't we look at the calendar right away so we can incorporate the dates into the motion?
Thank you.
Okay, I want to go over and look.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Voting will begin on January 28th.
Yes. I can ask you.
Would you mind?
No.
January 28th?
Do you want to amend the resolution to include the date of early voting? I can do so.
Yes.
Okay.
The dates of early voting, opening and closing. And then the 2-year term that Commissioner Zagitti is finishing, was that Mayor Green's term?
Correct.
And that is confirmed that this election is for a 2-year, not a 4-year.
Correct. We have 2 4-year positions, and then he was appointed to complete that term, so his position would be a 2-year.
Okay. Because I'm still, this is my first election, so bear with me. So is it normally, are they normally staggered that way, or is this 2-year term an exception?
This 2-year term is an exception, but that will put that position in the next 2 years, even with the stagger that was currently in place.
Okay.
So it'll go back into the
Regular succession.
succession
Okay.
once the 2 years is.
Generally, with the municipal judge, there's 2, and then the other election, there's 3
Okay,
commissioners.
thank you.
Mhm.
So then I would ask can you read the dates for us, Renee? So we have them in the record.
Yes, the absentee ballots can be issued on January 28th, and the early voting can begin on January 28th, and it ends on, ends on Saturday, the 29th. I believe that's a Saturday, because there will be a Saturday voting.
The 29th of February 2020.
February 29th is the end of early voting.
That
Okay,
is a Saturday.
That is a Saturday.
okay.
You're going to be open on Saturday for early?
Yes, ma'am, we're required to now.
Mhm.
Just that last Saturday is my understanding.
Yeah.
And there will be new requirements for same-day registration as in the new code that we'll be working on and working with the county clerk and Secretary of State's office to make sure is in place.
So can we incorporate these dates to be, item 5 and renumber item 5 to number item 6? Insert these dates after declaration for write-in candidates? Is that an appropriate place for it?
Possibly. I think if the commission will direct me to amend the resolution as such, I'll make sure it's correct and ran through the Secretary of State's office as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Is that acceptable, Commissioners?
Thank you. So I will stand for a motion to approve Resolution 19/20 for the proclamation calling the municipal election, officer election to be held on March 3rd, 2020, with the insertion of the dates for early and absentee elections, correct?
Early voting.
Early voting. Do I have a motion to?
I will make that motion.
And I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 16/19/20 as noted. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Yes.
Honorable Ralph Heschler?
Yes.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Honorable George Segedi?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item I-1 under new business. Discussion action, approval to cancel the second meeting of November and December due to the holidays. Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is fairly common practice among government entities that hold 2 meetings a month. I think most county commissions only hold 1 meeting a month. But it's just to make sure that we have a quorum and we continue business as usual in light of the holidays. Now, I want to provide my assurance to the commission and to the public that nothing is going to be postponed or delayed. This is not going to affect our operations in any way. As you can see, our agendas have been short, but if they need to be 6 or 7 hours long for these meetings, then so be it. They will be. If we need to call a special meeting during the rest of the month for November and December, we will. So with that reassurance, I recommend your approval to cancel the second meeting of November and December of this year.
Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, no? Okay. I will stand for a motion then to approve canceling the second meeting of November and December due to the holidays.
So moved, Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the canceling of the second meeting of November and December due to the holidays. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item J, reports. First report is City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, the first thing I want to do is probably embarrass Mr. Apodaca and say, welcome, Chief.
Stand up, come on.
I'd much rather see you sitting there than your picture up on the retired wall. So we're glad you're here. I'm not going to ask you to speak. The second thing is, I want to report on my town hall meetings that I had last time. And I'm glad one of the people I met with is still here, Mr. Pecoric. Hope you don't mind me acknowledging you in public. We have an ongoing discussion that I know is going to go through the Public Utilities Advisory Board, and it's regarding our utility rates. And there are several areas that we need to look at. This is one example of how the town hall meetings work, in that if I'm brought an idea and they're generally positive. I'll talk about the next two also. It's different from here in that it generates a discussion. And I think just about every meeting, Mr. Pecoric has been to at least 2 or 3 of them. And I think we both end up learning a little bit more after a discussion. So that kind of exchange always promotes different and new ideas, or at least a different outlook or a better understanding. That's never a bad thing. Also, I'd like to show off a paper that I got from another citizen. It's a whole outline of ideas, all positive ideas. They're not necessarily related to the city. Some of them are regarding traffic and turning lanes into businesses that are more Department of Transportation issues. It doesn't matter. We still hold a discussion, and I still relay these to the Department of Transportation. They don't just die here. And if there is a way that the city can support, get involved, or just explain why something is not possible, well, that happens too. There were comments about turning lanes and driving lanes and traffic flow. And I got some new information about it, and I gave this person some new information that she didn't have before. So I won't mention her name, but this kind of thing is really what the town hall meetings are all about, exchanging ideas and information. The third one was a person that came to see me about a road issue on Lincoln Street, and that was a fairly simple one and got resolved the same week. So this was the lowest turnout that I had. I don't know if it was the weather or the access here, but that's what happened at our town hall meeting the last time. As you know, Mayor, I won't be here for the next meeting. The town hall will take place. Whoever the acting city manager is will come and listen and explain if possible, just take notes if necessary. I also want to make sure that everyone knows for these November and December meetings where we won't have the second one, that's normally where we have our town hall in the evening. We'll have both public input at the meeting and in the evening on those days. So we won't eliminate the evening public input hearings in November and December. We'll just have them on the same day as the meeting. That opportunity will still be there. The last thing that I wanted to bring up was I wanted to give a brief description on when we make repairs on our water lines and we open up the street and we have holes in the street for a while. I want to explain how that process has been working. When we do have repair to do, we cut open the street, we make the repair, close up the hole, and you've seen the cones all over town. The cones are placed there just to alert people that there's a hole there, and I understand that when it rains, sometimes the holes get deeper. We're working on getting better about that. But the reason that we don't fix them immediately is because we have tried using a cold mix of asphalt. That does not bond and work as well as the hot asphalt does. In order to purchase hot asphalt from our only local supplier, we have to order a certain amount, because it's not fair to ask the contractor to fire up this big hot mix plant for 5 or 6 tons. Usually we get at least 50 or 100 tons at a time. That makes it beneficial for both. So until we get to the point where we will use all that hot asphalt, we leave the holes uncovered with asphalt. That's why the cones, that's why the holes in the street. We do appreciate people notifying us. I know I kept getting calls about the one on Marie Street last week. We finally got them all filled in. I think there may be a couple that we didn't get to. But that's how it works. And if there's any hazardous situations, any concerns, just call our office and we'll address them as soon as we can. If there's no other discussion, that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. The next one on the reports is City Attorney. City Attorney Rubin, do you have a report this morning?
No, I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, let's start with Commissioner Heschler.
No, ma'am.
Report? No? Commissioner Baca?
No, ma'am.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
No, ma'am.
No, before. And our last little guy,
Okay.
Commissioner Zagetti.
Got a quick point. In addition to what the city manager said about repairing the potholes, it's also a good idea when you're repairing any excavation in a road is to let the ground settle and pack for a while before you patch it. I'm sure we've all seen areas where they put in the asphalt on an excavation, and within a week or two, it's all settled and there is a hole there. By allowing the soil to settle and pack, and then coming back, re-leveling it, it gives you a better patch, and it helps keep the road level. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is I'm requesting an appointment with the city manager for early next week to go over that energy cost adjustment. So, if you can...
She's on it.
Okay. Yeah, just give me an appointment, figure out what time, and it can't be Wednesday, but any other time will be fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Zagetti. And I do not have a report at this time. I want to thank everybody. The next item on our agenda this morning is item K, executive session. We have items K1, threatened or pending litigation pursuant to 1015-1H7, and K2, limited personnel matters pursuant to 1015-1H2. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? I move.
Okay, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second that we go into executive session under threatened and pending litigation and limited personnel matters. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler. Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Zagetti.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Sam, you must look out for a couple of minutes.
Okay.